Hey, welcome to the For Evansville podcast. It's not often we have bonus episodes, but this one is definitely deserving of the title. At For Evansville, we gather and invest in leaders so that they can work together to address our city's greatest needs. One of our biggest events, hosting the Global Leadership Summit, allows our city's leaders to not only grow, but dream about a city where everyone can flourish. This year at the summit, Jonathan, our executive director, had the privilege of interviewing Mayor Stephanie Terry. We can't wait for you to hear her heart, leadership journey, and her love for Cabbage Patch dolls.
And good morning to you, Mayor Terry. Thanks for being with us this morning.
Having me.
Can you guys welcome Mayor Terry one more time? So this group of local leaders, nonprofit leaders, business leaders, church leaders, we've been enjoying a day of leadership development yesterday, and we're excited to be with you this morning to have a conversation about leadership, not just in general, but leadership here in Evansville, and reflecting on your own leadership journey, but also like, what does leadership look like in Evansville, and what kind of leaders do we need? And so I would love to start by just learning a little bit more about your leadership journey, and like, when you think about a space like this where people are learning and growing as leaders, what are some of the influences in your own leadership journey that come to mind that have shaped who you are as a leader?
Well, Jonathan, I'll tell you, probably first and foremost is my father and my mother. I lost my father about a little over a month ago, but I watched he and my mother serve the community. He was a coach and he was a pastor. And so that dedication and level of service, it was instilled in me early on growing up. And so that is, you know, my father is one of those individuals I want to emulate in many regards. And I've said it 1,000 times, I'm my daddy's girl. And many people for many years thought, well, she's going to be called to preach. But, you know, God directed me in a different path. And instead of giving me a church, he gave me a city. And so I hope to kind of to really live out kind of what I saw in my dad, and from his leadership and the dedication, the late nights that he got up and went to go look after people. That's who I am. I think a couple other individuals that really stand out in my mind. Sheila Huff, she's a very well-known educator in our community, but she was my coach, and track season was one of the toughest things, but she was one that would always push to get the best out of you. And so she was firm too. And I think I've kind of taken on that firmness. Many people say you have a stone serious face all the time, and I do, but I also, it's firm, but I also direct and lead with love. And so I think it's a good natural balance. And then Connie Robinson, she, as a politician, she was one of the longest standing African-American women that I saw serve for nearly 18 years. And what stands out about her is that she was always a voice for those that were underrepresented. And so that speaks into kind of the leader that I am today. But then I think the last thing is just those individuals that I've had the privilege of working alongside and working with. One of the toughest things to experience and go through is a 360 evaluation. But it's really critical, I think, to your continued development, and for, you know, your peers to tell you where you're strong, where you're weak, and that you continue to evolve and grow. And I'm actually preparing to do that here soon with my new team. And I'm really excited about, again, how, number one, you never stop looking to improve. Right. And I value that a lot.
Yeah, I'm curious, when you talk about growing up and your dad being a leader, did you, as a child, kind of like recognize that he was viewed as a leader by other people in the community, and that like that's sort of unique? Not everybody grows up with a dad who's a leader in the community. So were you aware of that as you were growing up, that he had that role, or was it later in life?
I think later in life. I was able to reflect on it a little bit more, and also because people began to talk about their experiences with him, and that really helped make that connection that they viewed him as a leader. Yeah,
I'm curious, when did you begin to see yourself as a leader? Did that happen in childhood, or was there a moment, or was it something that happened over time?
So I was telling a story to my team the other day, and I think really it was early on. I can remember very vividly, like it was yesterday, growing up in my home. I was in the home by myself growing up as a child without any other siblings. And so I had dolls, tons of them, Cabbage Patch dolls. I had every type of Cabbage Patch doll.
Organized into like a cabinet, you know, a government,
but my favorite was the strawberry shortcake.
Okay.
She smelled good. She was the best. But I would line up my dolls in my room in front of me. I would stand in front of them. I would talk to them, guide them. I would do all that. And I think it's those moments that really I was, pretending to be a leader. I was, organizing and imagining what it would be like. And so I think it was those early seeds really that helped, kind of foster my leadership and start my leadership journey. Yeah.
I am curious if there were any political rivalries or division that happened, in your bedroom government, or
I don't
things
think
were pretty, that's good. Yeah. So we, at a leadership conference, we hear from leaders who stand up on stages and talk about leadership. And I feel like we tend to view leadership and really great leaders on this pedestal. And we think of great leaders as the key to accomplishing great things in the community. And maybe to some degree that's true, but I also think that nothing great is ever accomplished alone. Nobody ever accomplishes anything great on their own. And I'm curious, in your leadership journey, what have you learned about surrounding yourself with the right people, about finding the right people to help accomplish the things that you want to bring into the world and into the community?
Yeah. It took me a little while to learn the importance and the value of the team. And but work life is so much better when you have the right people in the right places, and that you surround yourself with the talents and the skills that you need to complement you as a leader. And I think it's Jim Collins in the book Good to Great, where he talks about getting the right people on the bus. And so really even the first 100 days of this administration, that was what I was really focused on finding the right people, that again complemented who I am, but also in areas where I'm weak, trying to identify individuals that I can surround myself with so that they can be the experts. And I've learned that because if you allow people to lean into their strengths, they're going to be more passionate about their work, and they're going to give you their best. And it took some time for me to learn that, but I'm really proud of the team that we've assembled, and it makes my life so much easier that I can just walk in and sit down and have a conversation and know that they're carrying on with the work of the city. Yeah.
Would you have any advice for other leaders who are who are learning that same lesson of, man, I need the right team around me. I need to find people who complement my leadership? Any tips or advice that you'd give for other leaders who are trying to do that?
I think ongoing self-evaluation and reflection is an important part of that. Being transparent and honest with them about, where you're weak, I think is a starting point for people to help identify who should they, work with. We also too, and of course, hopefully many of you in this room are part of some of the coalitions and councils we've developed at the city with that same, spirit in mind that this work can't be done alone. And so we have to build these groups with diverse, representation to ensure we get the best results. Yeah.
No, that's really good. You mentioned your dad, who was a minister for, I think, 30 years, right? And then I know you and your family have been very involved in a local church. I'm curious how your own faith has shaped who you are as a leader, and maybe how participating in a faith community has maybe played a role in that leadership journey as well.
Well, I would say, number one, I'm not sitting in this seat without him. Mm-hmm. And I just firmly believe, thank you. I'm nothing without God. And I grew up in the church. I would say that's where I was on every Sunday, all day long. In the Baptist church, there's 3 or 4 services, and that's where I lived.
You're in the church more than you're not.
Yes, you're in church all the time. I even, I was, every summer, I went to Sedine Bible Camp in Springfield, Tennessee, and I would pick berries on the way back. That's how engrossed the church and my faith was, early on, was instilled in me. And and it's not changed. And I think that's really what makes me who I am. Faith is contributing to making sure I stay strong in challenging times. And I think there's value around having that faith community surrounding you. And that was really a big part of why I established an interfaith council. And people are like, why are you doing that? Why are you bringing religion into government work? But the reality is the faith community plays a role in developing and supporting the people in this community. And so not only did I want them to pray with and for me, I wanted them also to pray for our community and be sure that they're critical partners, in growing and moving our city forward, and that they also, it provided an opportunity for us to celebrate the diversity in our community. So the faith community and my faith, really, I'm nothing without it. And I think people see that, and I hope that they see that God is in me, and that they will see kind of the leadership that I have, that every move that I make, that I'm being thoughtful about the love of Christ and the work that we do. Yeah, well, I love how you've talked about, people thought that you might be called to lead a church, but instead he gave you a city. And I think that's a really good posture for any faith leader in our community to have, that they might be leading, or even people in other leadership positions, to see that they might be leading a particular community or a particular group of people, but to see that they play a leadership role in the broader city as well. And it seems like things like the Interfaith Council or the other councils that you've set up are giving people an opportunity to do that, to see their leadership role as bigger than just the thing that they directly lead, but that they're leading in the city as well. I think that's a really beautiful way to think about the calling of leadership, that it's a community calling, not just an organizational one. So I mean, I've said it before, this is not work I could do alone. And it's been the sentiment of my, not only the campaign, but even just now as we're governing, that we've got to do this together. Yeah. And we just have too many challenges, I think, in our community. And you may, ask this, but we're gonna have to challenge the status quo and not do things in the same manner. And so it's that collective spirit. I think we'll do that. Yeah. So as you think about that, and leaders kind of stepping into this unique moment where a lot is changing in the world, a lot is changing and growing in our city. What kind of leaders do you think our community needs? Like, how would you describe the type of leader that Evansville needs to bring us all together into that preferred future? Again, not just one leader, but a community of leaders. Who are those leaders? What kind of leaders? What kind of characteristics do they need to have for this unique moment in Evansville? Well, the characteristics-wise, I think you need individuals that are welcoming and want to be inclusive, but I think also you need innovative and collaborative individuals to kind of move us forward. And we've seen successes around that in our community, and how people come together. I mean, top of mind is just during the pandemic, when over $6 million was raised to invest back into nonprofit organizations that were struggling during that time. That's the level of collaborative power that we have in our community, and we're so giving. And I think the more that we can do of that, I think the better off we're going to be as a community as a whole. And it goes back to, again, trying to move past the status quo. We can't continue to do things the same old way and get this in, because we're going to get the same result. Right. And at some point, we have to say enough is enough. Let's do something different. Yeah, that's great. So your election into the office of mayor was immediately historic for two reasons. It might be historic for other reasons too, but it was immediately historic for two reasons. One is that you're Evansville's first female mayor, and two is that you're Evansville's first African-American mayor. And I'm just curious, what has that been like for you personally, to not just be the mayor of a city, but to have sort of these really important historical milestones attached to that as well? Well, it's very humbling. But it's been very rewarding to be in this position. And I've tried to come at it from a lens of, it's not about you, Stephanie. It's about the people. And I think that's made all the difference in being able to be in this position. And I don't want to let people down either. Even, and that first comes with some responsibility. And so I think it's important, again, how you build the team and how you surround yourself with the right people and the support systems to ensure that you're able to give your best. Because it's a demanding responsibility, a huge responsibility. And I hear it all the time. People are like, well, you've got a big job. I sure do. And I need you. And so hopefully we're going to talk about some expectations, because, again, there's a level of expectation people put on you immediately. And you kind of have to level set that, because one, I'm only one person, and I don't do this work alone. But it's been humbling. I'm honored to have the citizens of Evansville, those that came out to vote. I encourage you to vote this November. Don't take it for granted, because use your voice, and that's one way you can do it. Yeah. But those that said that we want you to be our mayor, I'm honored by that privilege, and I'm going to try to serve the best way I possibly can.
Yeah. Well, I think a lot of folks in this room can probably not relate to that experience of like their role being historic milestone in that way, but maybe folks in the room can relate to this feeling that their role represents something bigger than themselves. Faith leaders in the room maybe have this sense that they represent their faith. Business leaders represent their company and their customers and their employees. Nonprofit leaders represent a cause, And so there is maybe a sense that expectation that comes with that role can feel weighty and can feel like a big responsibility, and like I don't want to let people down. And I'm curious, you talked earlier about the importance of being transparent with your weaknesses and inviting people in to complement those things and being real with your team. And I'm curious how you balance that tension between feeling this pressure of like, man, you've got a big job as the mayor of a city, but also like these extra expectations on top of that to represent well, the community of people that are seeing themselves in the realm of possibilities is opened up for them, and you don't want to let our city down, you don't want to let them down, but you also want to be real with, hey, I'm a person, and just like you. And so I'm curious how you balance that tension, and if there's any practical advice that you'd have for other leaders who maybe feel that in some way.
Yeah, I mean, there's a delicate balance, I think, but for me, I think it starts out though with some self-awareness and humility going into it, and I think naturally be authentic, be who you are, acknowledge your mistakes, and chart out a plan to grow and develop from that. But then also, it's again, in my role is to serve the community. So it's important that I'm accessible, that I'm transparent. But in order to in doing that, I think it's important for us to set some goals, not only internally, but for the community. The community needs to know this is where we're headed, and this is that you're contributing to that, because that will help level set, I think, some of the expectations that people have if they understand what the focus is. Otherwise, they'll tell the narrative for you. And
sure.
I've seen that over and over. And social media is probably the worst culprit of people voicing their views on what they expect. And so I think once we set some clear goals, everybody can get behind that and really make some meaningful progress in the community.
Yeah, so would you say that setting those goals sort of helps level set by, instead of people having expectations just of you as a leader, setting clear goals is saying, hey, these are the expectations for our whole community.
Absolutely.
And it sort of gives you the ability to say, I'm not the one who's going to achieve these goals.
We are.
We need to achieve them together. I like that a lot.
Absolutely.
So it's creating even higher expectations that are for everybody.
Absolutely. And one of the things that we're doing right now is we're developing our city strategic plan. And as a municipality, we've not done that before. And so, not only is it an internal tool for us to look at and do an organizational assessment and look at where we can create efficiencies, it's also going to remind us these are the key priorities that we feel are important for our community for this season, and then how we're going to get there, and then how each department can fall in there, and how the community can be a part of that.
Yeah. So I remember right after you were elected, I spoke to a number of friends and like people who I'm close to through my job and things like that, women and people of color in particular, who your election to the office of mayor meant something deeply personal to them, that it said something about our community that maybe surprised some people and brought a layer of hope and optimism, but it also said something about them personally and the opportunities that they had in our community now. And I remember one person in particular said that people's imagination for what they're able to contribute and how they're able to contribute to our city just changed really significantly. And I think that fits together really well with the work that you're doing to like bring voices into city leadership. But I'm curious if you would have any advice or encouragement specifically for those people in our city who maybe have felt like they don't have an opportunity to be in a position of leadership or a position of influence because of the community that they come from, or because they're a woman, or because of their race or ethnicity. And now they're thinking, maybe there are more possibilities for me to lead than I thought there were. What would you say to those people in our city?
Oh, wow. Well, number one, I think believe in yourself and understand that you matter, and that you, regardless of your walk of life, you have something to contribute to really the forward progress of our community. I think, representation does matter, and I think that's why I'm honestly excited about the upcoming election, because for the first time in my history, I'll have an opportunity to possibly see a woman at the toppest level in our country. And much like here at the local level, people see that. But I think, finding ways to insert yourself, whether this in small groups and listening sessions, but never, shy away from letting your voice be heard. And I think it's in those moments, again, you begin to build the leadership skills that you need. Challenge your leadership, your leaders in your companies or your organizations, to give you new projects, and of course do well at them, because they'll see and notice. But again, be sure that you make your presence known, I think, in every opportunity that you possibly can, so that, again, you can continue to evolve.
Yeah. Any advice for leaders who are leading an organization or a church or a business, and they're wanting to be intentional about incorporating multiple perspectives in leadership? There's sort of a difference between sort of like being favorable to that idea and actually doing the work of incorporating those voices. And there are challenges along the way, right? It's harder than just appointing somebody, to key leadership roles. There's intentional team building and culture building and things like that have to happen. So what advice would you maybe have for somebody who is saying, I want to help incorporate more voices and perspectives into leadership roles that I have influence over, but I'm not sure where to start or how to do that?
Yeah, and I think culture is kind of the core of that, but provide vehicles for opportunities to hear from people. So whether that's listening sessions or small group work, but also, we can do a lot of activities and things to promote diversity and inclusion, but I think you also have to be sure that you're promoting equity in your policy, because if it's in policy, many times you can't deviate from it. And I'll say we're still, as a municipality, still trying to figure out and do better from that perspective. But I think, again, creating spaces for mentorship is also a key to help foster and insert diverse voices, but then also just being equitable in the practices that you have within your workplace, I think will make a tremendous difference in how you shift the culture in your environments.
Yeah, well, and it seems like that first point of listening can help to identify where those gaps are too, to understand, like, are the policies in our company, our organization, working for everybody, or are they creating unique barriers for certain people?
Absolutely.
Those things only come up when we get close to people and we listen and we have conversations and relationships. Yeah. So I like that a lot.
You're right. And even one thing last year, most of last year, I had nearly 6 or 7 listening sessions with that very intent. I wanted to be right across from somebody to hear directly from them, and I wanted them to know that I'm truly listening to you. Yeah. And I didn't want to form or roll out a vision for Evansville without hearing from the people that it will ultimately impact. And
Yeah.
so we're continuing that even now. We call it the traveling city halls, which is not a new concept, but we're making ourselves available to individuals and really trying to find as many ways possible, again, to capture feedback. If you haven't taken this city survey, it's out there. Please do that, because that's another way.
Where can they find that survey?
They can find that on the website, our city website, evansville.in.gov, or you can go to our social media page, Evansville Stephanie Terry for Mayor, and you'll find the QR code where you can take that survey.
Very cool. I'm curious. I listening is something that's very important to me and for Evansville as an organization. It's one of our core values, and I feel like there's a difference between. Sometimes we go through listening as like a checking the box kind of thing, but what you just described of, I want to sit across from somebody and I want to really listen to them, there's like a posture, there's like a leadership posture there. I'm curious if you would have anything to say about that, the difference between, just hosting a meeting and hearing feedback but not really hearing it versus I'm really going to come into this with an openness and like a posture of listening. Like, what does it take to do that as a leader?
Ooh, what does it take? I think a will, number one,
okay.
To want to learn from others, and to recognize that, unique viewpoints are vital to really effectively accomplishing anything we set out to do. I think it's when, as a politician, again, you get mixed up in whether you're DNR, but at some point that drops off. And when you're actually governing, and that's the place where we are now governing, it doesn't matter. It's about what is our common objective and goal, and how can we reach that? And I think it's through relationship building. It's then keeping an open, dialogue and opportunities for spaces where we can really have meaningful conversations and constructive conversations.
Right.
And also challenging each other, because again, some of the challenges that we're faced with, they're not new challenges. And so we just really have to, again, think creatively and challenge one another in that space to do that.
Yeah. Yeah, we're seeing our national political environment become increasingly hostile, right? And divided and fragmented. Right. And it seems like in Evansville, there's sort of this unique willingness among leaders to maintain a posture of openness and collaboration.
Absolutely.
And I hope that continues. I hope that we continue to be able to do that. I'm curious if you have any advice for leaders in our community, even who aren't in politics, but they're feeling the effects of that political division in our country taking a toll on their church community or creating division, within employees in their company. Any advice for leaders on how to create that culture of openness and collaboration and working together despite some of those differences?
Well, I think one thing is modeling the behavior you want to see in others. And so, but also being, again, open for open dialogue and creating those environments where many people can share and speak into whatever circumstance you're dealing with, and then continue to build relationships and look for ways to collaborate. I think those are things that we can do in any sector.
Yeah. I love that. And that's hard work because it means we also have to enter into that with the posture of listening and validating other people's perspectives. So I want to end with maybe more hopeful or fun questions because we've gone into some of the deep, challenging pieces of leadership. I'm curious from your perspective as mayor, when you look at our community, what are some of the areas that you find a lot of hope and optimism? Like, what are some of the things you look to after you've had a hard day as mayor? What are some of the things you think about that just kind of remind you about the hope that you have for our city or things that are going really well?
I think the people, more than anything. I mean, it's convenings like this that I can reflect on, that give the spirit of the collaborative spirit and really commitment to, you want to see not only yourself but the city move forward. And that makes all the difference at the end of the day for me. I just came from Glenwood Middle School welcoming students on their first day back. So it's in young people that also find hope, that I know that if we do right by them, our future is going to be brighter. I find hope in local businesses that are working to, give the best and support our community and evolving. There's just so many things that gives me hope right now. And I am, again, honored to be the mayor of this city at this time. Yeah. And I hope that we'll have an opportunity to continue to work together to ensure that this city continues to prosper.
Yeah. Okay, I have one more question for you.
Jonathan.
And I want you to answer honestly. Do you ever practice your speeches in front of Cabbage Patch dolls still today?
Not Cabbage Patch dolls, but I do sometimes in the mirror. I do.
Okay.
I do.
Okay.
In
Good.
full transparency.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for being here. We
so
appreciate your leadership in our city. We appreciate your posture of humility and inviting other people in, and just that sense of calling of leadership to our city. And I hope that the leaders in this room feel that sense of calling as well, and that they take that seriously, that they're not just leaders of their organization or the thing that they have direct influence over, but this is a room full of leaders of our city, and that same spirit of collaboration and inviting other people in, we all have an opportunity to lead our community together towards flourishing, toward making things better for everybody. So would you guys thank Mayor Stephanie Terry for being here?